My fellow seekers of quiet strength, brothers walking the Stoic path. Let me ask you this. If a woman truly loved you but couldn't say it, would you be able to see it anyway? As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And sometimes her soul is already speaking, even while her lips remain closed. Today we'll uncover 6 forbidden signs, not the obvious ones, but the subtle, often misunderstood behaviors that women only reveal to the men who truly matter to them. Not when they're flirting, not when they're playing, but when they're feeling something deeper, something they can't even admit to themselves. These signals are not loud, they're not romantic. They're hidden in silence, hesitation, tension, and they only appear when love becomes too real to control. Join me now, not just to understand her, but to reclaim your own presence as a man who sees without needing words. This is Stoic insight applied to love attraction and the quiet truth most men never realize until it's too late. So if you're here, if something within you seeks not more validation, but more vision, then you are in the right place. Tell me below where in the world you're listening from. And if you've ever felt that a woman cared more than she showed, this video might just explain why. Stay mindful, stay grounded. Now let us begin with the first signal. Number 1, the avoided gaze, when her eyes say too much. My fellow seeker, let me ask you something no one prepares you for. What if the most powerful "I love you" isn't said out loud? What if it's hidden in silence, buried deep in a glance she won't let you see? We've been taught to look for loud signs. Affection that's obvious, words that affirm, touch that declares intention. But the truth is, the deepest emotions rarely make a sound. Sometimes they avert their gaze. There's a moment that happens quietly, almost without notice. You're standing near her, not even close enough to touch. She sees you. Her eyes lift, and just as yours begin to meet hers, she looks away. It's not disrespect, it's not boredom. It's not that she doesn't want you. It's that she feels too much, and it terrifies her. This is the first forbidden signal, the one no dating guide will explain, no friend will interpret, and no woman will ever admit. When a woman truly falls, her eyes stop telling the full truth. Not because she's hiding from you, but because she's hiding from herself. You see, the eyes don't lie. The pupils dilate. The lashes blink slower. The micro-expressions soften, and in a moment too fleeting to measure, the soul steps forward naked and unguarded. And for a woman who's built her life on strength, on independence, on control, that moment is a threat. So she looks away, because the truth is starting to show through, and she doesn't know if you're safe enough to hold it yet. In Stoic terms, this is where your training begins. Not to react, not to project, but to observe. Not with judgment, not with strategy, but with the stillness of a man who can hold chaos without trying to fix it. Because this is chaos in its most delicate form. A woman's internal world colliding with the unspoken gravity you now represent. If you chase her eyes, if you ask, "Why won't you look at me?" you've already failed the test. Not because she's playing a game, but because she needs you to be stronger than her emotions. She needs to feel that you can hold her energy even when she can't. Think about it. We live in a world where women are trained to be composed, to compete, to survive without needing anyone. Vulnerability becomes a liability, and yet the feminine longs for surrender, for presence, for a place where the performance can drop even just for a moment. So when she looks away, when she avoids your gaze at the exact moment, her heart is about to say something real. She's not rejecting you. She's testing the space between you. She's asking, "Can you feel me even when I say nothing? Will you stay centered even when I pull away? Can you carry the weight of what I'm too afraid to admit?" This is where most men fail. They assume disinterest. They overcompensate. They get louder, more charming, more reactive. But the Stoic man does none of this. You breathe. You remain still, not cold but anchored, not passive but present. You say to her not in words but in essence, I saw you even when you tried to disappear. And that my brother is when something inside her shifts. Not immediately, not with fireworks, but quietly, slowly. She begins to feel safe, not because you filled the space with noise, but because you let her enter it on her own. And over time, she may begin to look again, not just with her eyes, but with trust, with softness, with presence. And when she does, when her gaze finally holds yours again, it won't be a performance. It will be an invitation, one that says, I see you too, and I no longer need to hide. So remember this. The avoided gaze is not absence, it's tension. It's the weight of unsaid emotion struggling to find the safety to land. Don't take it personally. Don't take it as rejection. Take it as what it truly is. A silent signal that you've touched something real. And if you can hold that, if you can remain unmoved yet fully aware, you'll earn something most men never do. The part of her that only comes alive in the presence of a man who doesn't flinch. Because love isn't loud, and real attraction isn't always confident. Sometimes it looks away, just to see if you'll still be there when it looks back. Number 2, the silent moments when her words go missing. You notice it during the most unexpected times, moments when something should have been said but wasn't. You share a story, and she nods but says nothing. You ask how her day was, and her answer is brief, almost like her voice got lost on its way out. Or you reach a moment where closeness hangs in the air like a question waiting to be answered, but she just goes quiet. Not cold, not distant, but silent. And you wonder, what does this mean? This silence is not absence. It's not apathy. It's a tension, a presence so strong it overwhelms words. And in women who truly love, especially when that love begins to frighten them, silence becomes the safest place to hide everything they can't explain. You see, when a woman falls for you, not because of what you give, but because of who you are, something dangerous happens inside her. The walls she's built to protect herself from false affection, from disappointments, from weakness, they start to shift. And with that shift comes fear, not of you, but of losing herself. Because loving you means she might lose control of the identity she's used to surviving with. That part of her that says, I don't need anyone. I'm fine on my own. And so rather than express the emotion that's growing inside her, she suppresses it, choosing quiet over confession. This is what you must learn to read. The pause between her sentences, the hesitation before she replies, the long exhale when she wants to say something vulnerable, fights it back. As a Stoic man, you don't demand the confession. You don't chase the explanation. You sit with her in the silence, not as a man needing answers, but as a man comfortable with not knowing. Because what she's actually doing in that silence is testing the weight of the bond between you. She wants to know, can you be with me without needing me to perform? Can you sit in the space between our words and still feel connected to me? Can your presence make my silence feel safe rather than threatening? These are the invisible questions she's asking with every unsaid sentence. And your response must not be verbal, it must be energetic. When she goes silent, you don't fill the air with noise. You don't joke to break the tension. You don't press her for emotional clarity. Instead, you remain calm, aware, grounded. You look at her not with demand, but with understanding. You offer her not a solution, but a sanctuary. Because true emotional leadership doesn't come from dominating a conversation. It comes from creating a space where the other person feels free enough to speak when they're ready. Most men collapse under this kind of silence. They panic. They interpret her quiet as rejection or anger or a lack of love. But the Stoic sees deeper. You know that sometimes silence is not emptiness, it's fullness without language. And here's what most forget. A woman's silence doesn't mean you've lost her. Sometimes it means you've moved her. You've stirred something so real inside her that She needs a moment to recalibrate who she is around you. And so she pauses. She retreats not away from you, but into herself, checking whether this space between you is solid enough to hold what she's never dared to show. If you speak too soon, you break it. If you rush her to share, she'll resent it. But if you stay still, just still enough, she may return. And when she does, her words will be more honest than anything you could have pulled from her. The Stoics teach us to master our response to what we cannot control. A woman's silence is one of those moments. You cannot predict it, you cannot avoid it, but you can meet it with presence. You can make it holy. And in doing so, you do something far greater than earn her love. You earn her trust. Because she'll realize deep down that you're the kind of man who doesn't need her to constantly validate the connection. You feel it, you hold it, and your calm in the absence of words becomes the proof she never expected to find. So next time she goes quiet, don't retreat. Don't overanalyze. Don't entertain your ego. Let the moment breathe. Just look at her softly. Sit beside her firmly. Let your energy say what your words don't need to. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And you're allowed to be silent with me. In that stillness, you become more than attractive. You become unforgettable. Because in a world that rushes, reacts, and recoils, you remain. Number 3. The subtle disrespect. When she starts challenging your frame. It doesn't begin with shouting, not with insults or chaos. In fact, it might seem so small at first that you brush it off. A sarcastic remark, a teasing jab that cuts a little too deep, a dismissive shrug when you speak, or the way she interrupts you not out of urgency but out of habit. And you tell yourself it's nothing. She's just being playful. Maybe she's tired. But over time, these subtle cracks grow louder. The tone becomes colder. Her words shift from curiosity to critique. And what once felt like flirtation now feels like friction. Still, you stay calm because you're trained in patience. You've practiced restraint. You're not here to dominate, nor are you desperate for validation. But let me be clear. This moment is not about her behavior, it's about your frame. You see, when a woman truly begins to feel something for you, something real, something unsettling, her instincts test it. Not always consciously, not cruelly, but biologically, emotionally, evolutionarily, because the feminine seeks structure, and structure must be tested to be trusted. So she challenges you not to destroy you, but to discover. Is he who he says he is? Is the calm he projects real or just a costume? Will he fold beneath the pressure of my moods, or will he remain? This is what Stoicism prepared you for, not comfort, not romance, but the resistance that comes from someone peering into your strength, hoping to find something immovable. If your foundation is weak, she will find the cracks. If your confidence is built on approval, she will shake it. Not out of malice, but because a woman cannot surrender to a man who bends to every emotional gust. So she'll speak a little sharper. She'll point out your flaws, not the way your enemies do, but in the way only someone close enough to see your gaps and care enough to press them might. It is not hatred. It's a deep-rooted hidden desire to know. Are you worthy of leading this dynamic? And this is where most men collapse. They argue, they withdraw, they punish her with silence, or they over-explain themselves trying to restore balance with logic and persuasion. But you, the Stoic man, you do none of that. You stay rooted, calm, clear, and most of all, unshaken. You don't need to prove yourself because you already know yourself. You're not triggered by her challenge because you've already challenged yourself more ruthlessly than she ever could. You don't try to teach her a lesson. You simply remain a living lesson in self-respect. And she feels it. Not immediately, not consciously, but energetically. She senses the strength not in your reaction, but in your restraint. In the way you respond not to win, but to lead. Sometimes that means letting her emotion pass like a storm you refuse to chase. Sometimes it means setting a boundary with simple clarity. That's not how I speak to you, and it's not how I'll be spoken to. Not with anger, not with ego, but with absolute certainty. Because that's what she's really looking for, not obedience, not apology, but containment. A man who contains his own chaos so deeply that hers doesn't scare him. This is the paradox. The moment she starts disrespecting you may be the moment she's closest to falling for you. Why? Because she's exposing her own instability, hoping, praying that your stability is real. And when it is, when she finds that you are not rattled by her tests, but anchored by your values, something shifts. The sarcasm softens, the coldness warms, the conflict dissolves. Not because you argued better, but because you refused to play a game with someone you love too deeply to manipulate. You stayed present, you stayed firm, and in doing so, you proved something she wasn't sure she could believe. That you are not like the others. That you don't fall apart when things get uncomfortable. That your power isn't performative, it's embodied. And from that point on, she relaxes. Not because she gave in, but because she no longer has to fight alone. She senses the rarest kind of man, the kind who cannot be baited into chaos, because his soul is already rooted in clarity. So when she challenges, you don't see it as betrayal. See it as the deepest form of curiosity, a test not of your love, but of your capacity to lead love. And lead it you will not with force, but with presence. Not with dominance, but with dignity. Not with reaction, but with unshakable frame. Number 4, the protective distance. When she keeps you close, but not too close. There's a strange space she begins to create. You're there beside her. She lets you in up to a point. The conversations are real. The connection is undeniable. The attraction pulses beneath every shared silence. But when it comes to real closeness, the kind where hearts press against hearts, without armor, she withdraws. Just a step. Just enough to confuse you. Just enough to make you question. Is she really here, or is she holding back? She'll share her day, but not her fears. She'll touch your arm, but retreat when it lingers too long. She'll text you with warmth, but disappear when things feel too emotionally exposed. And if you're not trained to see it, you'll think she's playing games. But this isn't a game, it's a defense. A survival instinct wrapped in the illusion of self-protection. This is what happens when a woman feels something too deeply too soon, when her body leans in but her heart is terrified of collapse. And so she gives you proximity but never full access, because full access means surrender, and surrender is dangerous. She's been there before, with men who promised safety and offered storms, with moments that felt sacred but ended in silence. So now, even when she meets someone who feels different, especially when she meets someone who feels different, her instinct is to pull back. Not out of disrespect, but out of trauma, out of memory, out of the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, you're not as safe as you seem. And here is where the Stoic man must rise, because in this moment, your ego wants answers. You want to press to ask what's going on with us. You want clarity, labels, certainty. But Stoicism teaches you something more powerful: presence without pressure. You do not demand her vulnerability. You create a space where it might feel safe to land. You do not force the walls down. You simply don't become another reason for her to reinforce them. She needs to know that your steadiness isn't a trick, that your calm isn't conditional, that you won't change the moment she lets her guard down. So you remain close but not invasive. You let her come to you not because you're playing hard to get, but because your worth isn't found in chasing. Your worth is found in holding space. And as you do this, something remarkable happens. She starts to feel you not just as a man, but as a presence, a stillness, a grounding force she doesn't need to explain herself to. And in that presence, she begins to lower the shields. Not quickly, not all at once, but in layers. She'll start to linger longer in your arms. Her gaze will soften when you speak. Her silences will feel safer, and without even realizing it, she'll begin to replace distance, depth. Because you didn't react, you didn't retreat, you didn't reach out with desperation. You stood as a man with no need to prove, only the strength to hold. This is the paradox of feminine energy. It craves closeness but fears being consumed. It longs to be understood but resists being studied. It tests not to torture but to trust. And when you pass those tests, not through performance but through patience, you become the rarest kind of presence in her life. A man she can finally relax around. A man who doesn't chase her wounds but waits for her truth. A man who doesn't need constant reassurance because his sense of self is already whole. And when she senses this, when she realizes your peace doesn't depend on her love, she gives you more of it. But if you rush it, you break it. If you demand access, you lose it. The Stoic man knows. True closeness cannot be claimed. It can only be invited. So if she pulls away, stay grounded. Let her feel the silence without punishment. Let her feel your presence without pressure. Be the stillness in the storm of her overthinking. And when she finally reaches for you, not because you asked, but because you waited, you'll know that what you've built isn't a fragile connection. It's a sanctuary. Number 5, the reversal of polarity when she tries to lead the dance. There will come a moment when she steps forward, not with affection, but with direction. She begins deciding how the evening goes. She sets the pace, shifts, the tone takes the lead. And it's not always overt. Sometimes it's subtle, suggesting where you go, what you wear, how you should respond, how you should feel. At first, it feels like initiative, confidence, independence. And those things are beautiful until you realize the rhythm between you has changed. The masculine no longer guides the dance. This is the reversal of polarity. And if you're not careful, it becomes the slow death of attraction. Stoicism teaches that leadership isn't dominance, it's responsibility. The masculine holds the frame so the feminine can flow. You're the riverbanks, she's the current. Without containment, the river spills into chaos. Without the masculine core, her feminine essence becomes anxious, forced to control what it yearns to surrender to. So when she begins to lead the dance, it's not always a power play. Sometimes it's a cry for you to reclaim your center. Because whether she knows it or not, she doesn't want to lead. She wants to trust the one who does. And if that trust erodes, if your indecision, your passivity, your emotional overexposure signal instability, she will step forward not because she wants to, but because she has to. Her instincts won't let her follow a man who doesn't know where he's going. This is where most modern men fail. Taught to be agreeable, taught to please, taught to defer and adapt endlessly, they abandon the very polarity that stirs feminine devotion. Direction without control, presence without permission. So what does the Stoic man do when polarity starts to flip? He doesn't panic, he doesn't argue, he doesn't try to dominate. He simply returns to his core. He leads not with loudness, but with clarity. He says, "This is where I'm going tonight. I'd love your company." He doesn't ask for permission. He invites her into his world, into his pace, into his presence. And when she resists, not in defiance, but in habit, he smiles, not to appease, but because her resistance only confirms one thing. She's waiting for the real you to return. When the masculine stands still, the feminine dances wildly. But when the masculine moves with conviction, the feminine melts. Because now she has something to lean into, something to relax into, something that holds not her body, but her spirit. You must remember, leading isn't telling her what to do. It's embodying a direction so confidently that she no longer has to carry the burden of both energies. And in that moment, when you reclaim the dance not by force, but by rhythm, tone, and silent certainty, she'll feel it deep in her body. That inexplicable shift from control back to chemistry. You've seen this before, in couples who lose the spark, in relationships where respect quietly vanishes. It begins here, when the man forgets who he is, when he trades his backbone for comfort, his mission for maintenance. Stoicism isn't about suppressing desire, it's about channeling it. You don't lead because you crave control. You lead because you've done the inner work to trust yourself. You've faced your own chaos so hers doesn't scare you. You've chosen your values so you're not seduced by momentary moods. You've returned to your breath so her turbulence doesn't knock you off course. And when she senses that you are unshaken by her attempts to lead, she exhales, not always visibly, but her body relaxes, her mind quiets, her need to control dissolves. Why? Because you've become the safest place she never knew she needed. So when the polarity begins to shift, when she starts to steer, don't compete, don't collapse, and don't comply in search of peace. Just return to your stillness, your direction, your rhythm. She may test it, she may fight it, she may challenge it, but deep down she's praying for it. Because every feminine storm is looking for a mountain that won't move. Be that mountain. Number 6, the silent withdrawal, when she disappears without warning. It's not a fight. There were no harsh words, no sharp goodbyes, just silence, sudden and unexplained. The texts slow, then stop. The rhythm that once felt alive between you vanishes. And now you're left wondering, what happened? What did I miss? This is one of the most confusing signals a man receives, not because it's loud, but because it's quiet. The feminine withdraws, and you're not given a map. She leaves not with an explosion, but with absence. And if you're not grounded in Stoic understanding that absence will drag you into a storm of doubt, you'll think you did something wrong. You'll scroll through past messages searching for a mistake. You'll replay conversations in your head, trying to decode the moment her tone shifted. But the truth is often more subtle than that. It's not always about what you did. Sometimes it's about what she felt and couldn't handle. See, when a woman begins to feel deeply, especially for a man who doesn't chase, doesn't bend, doesn't break her own emotional depth, can become overwhelming. She's not running from you. She's retreating into herself, trying to make sense of the emotions you awakened, trying to decide whether those emotions are safe to trust. And here is the paradox. She disappears because you made her feel too much. The very stillness you carry your calm, your unwavering energy begins to reveal to her all the chaos inside her own heart. The comparison is too stark, the vulnerability too terrifying, so she pulls back. And here is where the average man collapses. He panics, reaches out, double texts, over-explains, apologizes for things he didn't even do. He tries to reclaim the connection by breaking his frame. But the Stoic man doesn't move like that. The Stoic man feels the absence and remains whole. He does not chase, he does not crumble. He does not wage war with ghosts, because he understands. Her silence is not his cue to rescue. It's her moment to reflect. There is a kind of respect that only grows in absence, a clarity that silence creates. When you do not react, when you do not force her to explain, when you let her sit in the gap she created, she begins to understand the cost of your presence. And slowly, without pressure, something shifts. She begins to miss your stillness, not your flattery, not your effort, but the feeling she had when you were around, the quiet certainty, the space she could relax into, the energy that didn't demand, didn't beg, didn't perform. She may not return with an apology. She may not even have the words to explain what happened. But if you stayed grounded, if you didn't let her withdrawal steal your center, she will feel it. She will feel your calm like a lighthouse in her emotional fog. And in time she may return. Not because you pulled her back, but because she realized you never chased her into the dark. You stayed in the light, unmoved, unchanged, whole. This is one of the highest forms of masculine power. To remain present in absence, to allow others to disappear without letting their disappearance alter your path. Not from arrogance, not from detachment, but from a deep trust in your own completeness. As Epictetus wrote, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." This moment, her withdrawal, is one of those events. You don't need to control it. You need to witness it, learn from it. Let it shape your patience, not your panic. Because if she does return, she will return to a man who didn't flinch. And if she doesn't, then she was never ready for the kind of presence you offered. Either way, you win. And in that space, women feel something rare: safety, polarity, depth. So remember this. Every time you choose your center over her chaos, your mission over her mood, your stillness over her storm, you rise. Not just in her eyes, but in your own. Because the real power isn't in controlling her. It's in commanding yourself. Stay rooted, stay clear, stay unshakable, and the women who are truly ready will feel you. This is the path, the quiet path, the Stoic path. Thank you for walking it with me. If this message found a place in your mind or your heart, don't forget to subscribe. There's more ahead. Until then, stay grounded and keep walking like the man you were born to be.